Hi, everybody, and welcome to Kelly's Chronicles. This is my podcast. Welcome. And today we've got Dad, and he's going to be joining me pretty much every time I do a podcast here on YouTube. Um, I'm a full time truck driver. I do tour driving. That's a little bit of a unique thing about me. My husband and I both do it together. And we take singers around the country to do their concerts. We set up their equipment. We haul their equipment, and then I'll go set it up. So a little bit about myself. I was raised in Arkansas. Originally from Baltimore. Do you want to introduce yourself, Dad?
Oh, yeah. I'm Chuck, and I'm a veteran, 26 years in the military. I was in the Army National Guard, the Navy, and the Coast Guard. I served 2 tours in Vietnam with Navy Special Forces, and kind of a unique outfit. And then I was in the Coast Guard for 21 years.
Yeah, and you were all over the country with that one.
Right. I served on all four coasts.
All four coasts.
All four. People don't realize we have four coasts. But I was in the Gulf of Mexico on the Coast Guard Cutter Reliance. I was in Long Beach, California, at a rescue coordination center. I was on an icebreaker in the Great Lakes.
Now, you were on the Great Lakes, weren't you?
And then I was on a cutter out of Norfolk, Virginia. That's Gulf Coast, Pacific Coast, Great Lakes, and East Coast.
Even coasts that aren't even actually coasts. You were on those coasts.
Yep. Wherever there's water.
Wherever there's water. That's awesome. So that was part of the reason why we wanted to do a podcast, was because Dad has lots and lots and lots of stories about when he was in the military. He fought in Nam, and I grew up hearing those stories. And not only did we hear about the stories from Vietnam, we also heard stories from World War II with Grandpa. So we have quite a few interesting family stories. We'll give kind of a couple of little tidbits about. You grew up in the 1950s, didn't you?
Yeah.
So you were around when there was segregation.
I was in Jim Crow South in southern Georgia, and we had our little brick schoolhouse in the hill, and the black folks had their little wooden schoolhouse down the valley. We rode separate buses to school, and they had separate drinking fountains and separate. When they went to the movies, they set up in the balcony, and we sat down in the bottom. And they throw jujubes at us, spit on her.
Some of you guys probably deserved it, huh?
Yeah. Well, he definitely didn't sit right underneath the balcony edge. They'd be dropping stuff on you and everything. So, yeah.
So kind of quite a few little memories there from when you were a kid. And then you were raised in a trailer in the military, a travel trailer in the military, going base to base with mom and dad. So that was probably a really interesting lifestyle as well. Very not a normal lifestyle, I will tell you that.
Yeah.
And then you graduated in Springdale, Arkansas, which I didn't start my life out like that, but we all ended up where you graduated eventually,
Right.
which was crazy. And that was to take care of your mom.
Yep. Northwest Arkansas.
Arkansas, which I was raised in Bentonville. So that's home of the Walmart. So,
and I graduated from Springdale, home of Tyson's.
Home of the Tyson headquarters are there. Yeah, that's right.
Yeah.
Just a couple other neat things from history. You remember the JFK shooting?
Oh, yeah.
And you remember the moon landing?
Yeah. I was in Vietnam.
Oh, you were in Vietnam?
Yeah.
Okay. You want to tell everybody how old you are?
When I was in Vietnam?
No, now. Oh, right now.
78.
78?
Mm-hmm.
Feel 78?
Yeah. 78. What?
I don't know. I don't think you feel 78. I don't think you don't look 78.
No, I don't feel 78.
Yeah.
No, I don't. That's hard for me to even conceive.
He still works on the house. He helps my mom run a little farm out in Idaho. They moved out to the Idaho mountains about almost 5 years ago. Moved to a little farming community. Very pretty out there. I'll eventually show pictures, but he basically adds onto that house. He added on
a bedroom and a basement.
Bedroom, basement, master bathroom.
Mm-hmm.
Did a garage add-on and a barn. So he definitely knows his way around a hammer and some nails. I'll tell you that. Um, so we kind of talked about why we wanted to start the podcast, and that was because he originally wanted to write a book, and so I actually suggested a podcast instead to tell your adventures and your stories. He's definitely been around the world. You've been around the world, and you've seen it all pretty much, and mainly your war stories of when you were in Vietnam, and a lot of your experiences in the Coast Guard, especially when you served down in Miami in the 1970s with immigration and the cocaine importing that was getting smuggled in.
Yeah.
So, um, so that was kind of a little bit of some interesting things that you had experienced. You also told me one time that you were in the Death to Disco. Um, that piece of a little bit of piece of history.
Yeah, I was
the Cubs Stadium.
White Sox. Yeah, the Wrigley. Is it Wrigley? No, it's White Sox Stadium. I'm not sure. Yeah, I'm not sure it was Wrigley Field. I think Wrigley Field's the Cubs.
Okay.
And then the White Sox is just the White Sox Stadium. Yeah, I don't know. Anyway, there's actually going line. There was you've seen it. Yeah, they had the guy who was a disc jockey in Chicago, and for some reason he hated disco. So he started this thing, death to disco or disco sucks or something like that. And so he had a promo, and he said, on this given day, it was like a Saturday, I think, if you bring a disco record, you get him free.
Yeah.
So 30,000 kids showed up with disco records.
How many disco records did you have?
I didn't have any because I was in the military, so I got in free.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
So
you didn't have any. You didn't have
yeah, I didn't have a disco record.
Okay.
But we went up and we sat on the third base side, about probably about 10 rows up from the field, and these kids were throwing these records like frisbees, and there was a man and his daughter sitting about 5 rows below us, and she got hit in the head with a record and opened up her head.
Whoa.
Blood everywhere, and they ran out, and these kids were just, I mean, they were unruly. They were out of and they started going. Now that they had security there, but they went over the gates to get in. They were climbing up because there's like these accordion gates over the entrances.
Yeah.
They were climbing those and coming in, and then there was a double header, and we got there just as the first game was ending.
Okay.
And all the kids were just in there, thousands of kids.
What part of the stadium were you sitting in? Do you remember?
On the third base line, about 10 rows up from the dugout. It was good seats, yeah. And all the kids were on the first base side. For some reason, they all went on the first base. There wasn't very many on the third base side. So anyway, between the two games, he came out in a Jeep with a helmet on and everything, standing up in the Jeep, drove out in the field, because I think he'd call himself the rock and roll general or something like that. Anyway, he goes out and there's this big cardboard box in the outfield, and it's full of records.
Yeah.
And all of a sudden, somebody set off an explosion and blew this box apart and blew records all over the outfield.
Was that planned?
I guess he wanted to, and he was talking all this. I think he had a sound system going. He was like talking about how disco sucks. He's gonna blow up this. I'm gonna destroy all these records, So anyway, looked over on the first base side, and some kid jumped over the wall, down over the dugout fence, because there's like a dugout ceiling, and he jumped down in the dugout ceiling, and then jumped down on the field, and then here comes another one, and pretty soon the whole field was full of kids. Then they started ripping the seats out and throwing them down in the field. I mean, it was a riot, basically. And the owner, and they got really, really bad. And they were like, it already delayed the start of the second game. Yeah. Oh, yeah. And there was a woman out there.
Seriously?
Oh, yeah. There was some girl out there. They got a big crowd of guys around her, and they were out in the field, and they tore all the bases up because the bases are just like, they're like nailed to the ground. I mean, they're not just, and they ripped them out of the ground. And, the owner of the White Sox came out. He was there at the game. He came down. I think his name was what was his name? Verbeck or something. He had a baseball bat for a wooden leg.
Oh wow.
Yeah, and he came down, and then the managers of the two teams came down. I think they're playing the Giants, and they came down and stood on home plate and begged the kids to stop it and go back into their seats and watch the second game. Have a good time, you know. Nobody paid any attention to
Nobody did.
Nobody paid any attention. And yeah, and so finally, after about a half an hour, this total chaos, the Chicago PD showed up with dogs. And they got them off the field. Yeah, you don't mess with Chicago cops. And they cleared the field. And then after they got everybody out, then the grounds crew came down. Okay. And they looked and they said, there is no way that you can play a game here. The field is ruined. They're going to have to completely start all over and redo all the grass and redo all the baselines. Can't have the second game, so they canceled the second game.
Oh.
And we left. But there is a video.
Yeah.
It's on YouTube, and it's about called a disco riot or something like that.
Well, I know one channel that I like to watch on YouTube. They actually did a bit about it. It was pretty it wasn't that long ago actually. It was about a year ago.
Yeah.
And I watched that. I was like, my dad was there.
Yeah, it was in.
Sometimes, like when I watch those videos, I try to find you in the stands. But now that I know that you're the 10th row back, right above the third base.
No, not right on the third base line.
Oh, on the.
So I was like, yeah, because third base, of course, runs from home plate, runs out 65 feet, I think, and then the third base is there, and then there's a foul line that runs down all the way to the wall, and we were like on the third base line, about halfway down, so about 30, and then about 10 rows up. And I don't know, I probably could find myself there. It was me and one other guy.
Another guy.
Yeah, one other guy. Yeah, one of the guys from the ship. We went down there. But that was a shock. I mean, I've been to baseball games before.
But that was
a riot at a baseball game. I can see where they empty the benches and guys get out there and the teams get out there and fight. But I've never guys come out of the stands and coming down and fight. That was crazy. Yeah, that was in, let's see, it would have been a July of 79, 70, I think it was July, because why we were in Chicago is because the Mackinac, which is what I was on an icebreaker, was home ported up in northern Michigan. And once a year, they would come down to Chicago, and there was a columnist for the Chicago Tribune named Kopinski. And Kopinski had a Cups cruise. And we would come down, and the Cups cruise is for veterans. And so we would put this big awning on the fantail of the ship, huge, covered the whole fantail, big, huge awning. And then they'd bring these veterans up, a lot of them in wheelchairs, on walkers and everything. And they would come up and get on board the ship, and we would take them out in the lake.
Oh, wow.
Steam around a little bit and come back and have a nice day, and we would give them sodas and stuff. And yeah, and it was really, it was good. It was good. And they got out of the hospital a lot of them were in the VA hospital.
Okay.
Recuperating from Vietnam and stuff. Because it was,
long after Vietnam was.
It was like 5 years after it was, 5 or 6 years after it was over. So But there was also World War II and Korean, older guys.
Yeah.
But there were some younger guys too.
Okay.
So that was why we were there.
Nice.
And we went to me and this had a real good friend that was on the boat with me, and so we went down to this big, beautiful theater down right near the Loop, which is down in downtown Chicago, and it's called the Chicago Theater. So we went to the Chicago Theater to see Alien when it first came out, right? And so we go in there and we're sitting like we got like right in the front. I mean, we're right in this huge CinemaScope screen, like 30 feet high, 75, 80 feet wide, and we're right in the middle. And we're watching this movie, and there's one scene where the alien, I think the alien, like either jumped out in, when they were, on this spaceship, right? It's just a science fiction thing. So on this spaceship, and the alien jumps out or something, and my friend stands up and starts screaming like a 12-year-old girl.
Wow. Scared of that bad.
Yeah, it terrified him, and I said, "Sit down." Yeah, that was hilarious. I'd like to watch. I haven't watched Alien since then. I don't think I'd like to watch it again, see if I can remember the scene where he jumped up and started screaming. I think it was the first time the alien actually presented himself, I guess, with his, he had that weird mouth. He opened his mouth and his other mouth would come out. He had this gel on his fangs.
So you remember like classic movies that came out in cinema that people love to this day. So
yeah,
I think I went to theaters and I saw Aliens versus Predators like way back in the day.
Yeah,
that was or something like that. I can't. Yeah. I saw one in the movie theaters. I think I was with my friends and we were kind of on one of those lame Friday nights.
Yeah.
Go out.
Yeah, they have done a lot of alien stuff. Like there's been 2 or 3 of the original Alien.
Yeah.
And of course they've done hundreds of movies about extraterrestrial critters, various sundries, but that alien is really, that's a master alien there.
Yeah.
That's a scary critter. Yeah. Enough to make a grown man stand up and scream.
So kind of, I think as we go through and we do this podcast, I was talking to you a little while ago when I came to visit in Idaho, and you were telling me that you were going through therapy, PTSD, with going through Vietnam, which I don't think a lot of you guys from wars of past have done a lot of you guys didn't do therapy.
No.
That wasn't really a thing back then.
A lot of guys commit suicide and get divorced and beat their kids and become addicted to drugs and booze. And so I avoided all that stuff, but still there was things that, I guess.
How did you describe it when I saw you last time? You said that part of your life in your memories is kind of like a black hole.
Yeah.
And things just kind of broke out every
Yeah. Well, I mean, there's like a lot of what happened in Vietnam is stored in my mind, but it's not recallable.
Yeah.
Like I had a dream once, and it was about an operation because I was in naval special warfare.
What did they call you guys?
We were beach jumpers. Right, but we were in the same command as SEAL Team, Underwater Demolition Team, Boat Support Unit 1, which is the boat support unit would take the SEALs and the UDT guys out and to wherever they're operating. Yeah. We were, everything was classified, secret, and, what we did was all classified. And, yeah. But I experienced things that I really can't remember. They come to me in dreams, or I'll see some, like I'll be watching. I like to watch war movies. I'm crazy, I watch a war movie.
It's there.
And there was one, especially there's one scene in Apocalypse Now where they're in this helicopter and they're coming down on this beach and they're gonna do this vertical assault, and this vertical assault on this beach and with the helicopters and wipe out these Viet Cong, And there's one part where these guys were coming in on a helicopter and they were checking their ammunition and everything, and they took their magazine, M16 magazine, and hit on their helmet.
And you have that memory.
And I have that. That was what everybody did.
Yeah.
Because when you load your magazine, the bullet is not the same exact size as the magazine.
Oh,
so in order for the magazine to work properly in a weapon, you have to get all the rounds over on one side. And so you hit your magazine on your helmet, and that makes all the rounds on bang up against the back of the magazine. You put it in.
Definitely don't want your gun jamming when
you don't want it. And they jammed anyway. They were worthless. So when we first got over there, I was over there when the Marines first getting M16s. Up until then, they used the M14, which is a totally different weapon, totally different bullets.
Is it better than the M16?
No, it's not. No. The thing about the M14 was it was really heavy. There's a wooden stock, had about the same. No, and it had about the same mechanism as an M1, and it basically the same. It was a different feed, but it looked like an M1 in a lot of ways, and it was just this heavy, solid steel. Big, and the bullets that was a 7.62 Vice. The M16 was a 5.56, so it was about the ammunition for the M16 is about a third the size of a M14, and so you could carry with the M14 you could carry maybe 100 rounds before it got to be too much to carry. But M16 you carry 300-400 rounds, no problem. A lot lighter, and and I wouldn't. Some people say it was deadlier. I don't think it was deadlier because the actual projectile, the bullet, was a lot smaller than the M16 or M14. So you're hitting a guy with a lot more. With the M14, you hit him with a much bigger round and has more stopping power and more penetration power than the M16.
Okay.
So which is better? And the Marines loved the smaller, the ability to carry more ammunition. They loved that, but they didn't like the fact that the stupid thing jammed all the time. They even had, when I was over there, they had because these were made by Colt. That's who had the patent. They didn't make all of them, but the Colt Firearms Company had a trailer in Da Nang. And if your weapon misfired, jammed, or malfunctioned anyway, you were supposed to take it to that Colt trailer and let them look at it because they could see, was it dirty? Did you have the right ammunition? Was the ammunition up to, because ammunition, people don't know this, but ammunition is all serial numbered. When you get a box of ammunition, any kind, 50 caliber, whatever, even giant rounds for big, heavy artillery and stuff, they're all coded, and each case in the M16 they would come in metal boxes, and it would be like, I'm thinking like 400 or 500 rounds in there, and there was a serial number on the outside, and they would, and if the Army started or the Marines started getting a lot of malfunctions out of this one batch of ammunition, then they would say it must be that that batch is either too old or it was manufacturing defect. So they would send out a message to everybody, and we would take these ammunition out, and we would either dispose of it locally or we would send it back to the States, and then they would dispose of it. So it was all, the military is very particular about their ammunition. They want the best that there is, and they don't want it malfunctioning. And so if we started getting malfunctions then they would check the lot number on the ammunition that guys were using, and if they saw that it was probably an ammunition defect, then they would recall all that ammunition and send it back or whatever. So yeah, even when I was in the Coast Guard, they get recalls on ammunition, and we would have to pull it out of our armories. Because I had everywhere when I was in security in the Coast Guard, we had our armory and had a gunner's bait.
Yeah.
Had tons of ammunition, and occasionally we would have to pull it out of our stock and get new ammunition. Yeah.
Rotate it out.
Yeah. And they had this one couple, and just all they did was drove around to all of these military bases and pick up the old, give them new.
That's right. That was one of the old trucking stories that you told me.
Yeah. $6 a mile.
$6 a mile, which is almost unheard of in the trucking industry nowadays. It being a pretty unique.
Yeah, but it was a team driving too. There was that man and his wife, so they were team driving, but still $6 a mile. Good gosh.
That's good. That's over about, especially if you're teaming.
Yeah.
You're running all the time. Didn't he rig that trailer by himself? Didn't he make it himself?
It was different because it was like a container on a flatbed, but the flatbed had a step in the back and a step in the front, and it was almost like detachable hitch, the big low boy.
Yeah.
But it wasn't a low boy. It was because they would pull it with a pickup truck. But this container, the outer shell of the container was like armor plated. I mean, it was like really thick, solid steel, and the roof was fiberglass.
Okay.
So if it blew up, if that stuff exploded, it would go straight up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Out to the side.
Yeah.
Which is definitely something.
Yeah, but it was like Willy Wonka and the ammo factory or something. It was like a little old man. He's probably in his 60s or something. Little old wife. She's probably near knit somewhere, driving around the country and
picking up ammo.
Doing the ammo. Yeah, it was. Oh yeah, it was. It was unstable, or it wouldn't have recalled it.
Oh, that's true. Yeah.
So it was either spontaneously going off, and because sometimes you would have what they call a cook off. You'd have a round that would cook off, and it'd be like.
What does that mean?
Well, what would happen is if you're firing a weapon a lot, so you get in this firefight, and it was normally the machine guns, not necessarily the rifles, the machine guns like the M60 and stuff, and the barrel would get, red freaking hot. Wow. You could light a cigarette in the barrel. And so what would happen is it would eject the cartridge case, and the next round would go into the receiver, into the barrel, and it would be so hot that as soon as that round was seated in the barrel, it would go off. You didn't pull the trigger, no firing pin hit it, it would just cook off and fire spontaneously. But when it happened, then that would mess up the whole sequence of firing.
Yeah, I was going to say
it usually the whole machine gun would malfunction when it started doing that. And with 50 calibers, they would, if they started cooking off rounds or rounds started going weird, they'd change barrels.
Wow.
And they had a special pair of asbestos gloves, and they'd take the barrel off and throw it in the weeds and put another barrel on. So, yeah. It was.
How long were you in Vietnam for?
2 tours, total of about a year and a half total. Yeah.
That's a lot of. That's a lot longer than a lot of guys saw.
Yeah, most guys, they
9 months, right?
13 months. Most guys, the reason it was 13 months is because if you do a day and a year, you get tax free.
Yeah.
All your pay is tax free. You don't pay income tax on it.
Okay.
But instead of going a year and a day, they would go 13 months, and then they would get in 13. They get their, but unfortunately, what would happen is when guys got their year in, their 365 days, and they knew they had a month left, they would either start taking stupid chances, or because they were felt almost invincible because they've been there for a year and they're still alive, and they felt like, well, I can't. I've been here all this time. I can't. And then other guys they'd start getting antsy, like, I'm getting a short timer, and I'm gonna, if you're gonna die, it's gonna be in this month, sometime in this month period, and they start making stupid mistakes. And a lot of guys, that last month was their last month. They'd bite it, right? They go home in a box. So yeah, and that was unfortunate, but that's the way it was set up, and that's they had to live like that. But those guys that had the 13 months, they were permanent change of station. They would get a set of orders to Vietnam.
Okay.
Okay, I was temporarily assigned to Okinawa. So I would get a set of orders assigning me temporarily to Okinawa, where we had our headquarters, and then from there we'd fly to Vietnam or the Philippines or go out on a ship or whatever. There was guys. It was teams all over the place. Right? We were in teams. They called us teams. So we had, and then we were in. Then there was in the team there was detachments. So I was in, like, when I was in the stateside, I was in team one, and then team one would get would get deployed to Vietnam, and then we'd have detachments in Vietnam, and we were doing all kinds of weird stuff over there. So
now, were you drafted or did you volunteer?
I volunteered.
You volunteered.
Yeah, as a matter of fact, I joined the National Guard when I was 17, and my folks had to sign the papers. December, my birthday in January, so December of 64, I joined the National Guard. And my plan was to be able to live at home, because we we're only 10 miles from University of Arkansas. So I can live at home, go to university, get my education or whatever, and I'd avoid the draft.
So if you were getting an education, you could avoid the draft?
No, well, yeah, if you're in the National Guard, you aren't going to be drafted. National Guard is the military.
Cool.
You take the oath and all that, and you got a 6-year obligation, and so I joined the Army National Guard, and then my senior trip was to Fort Polk, Louisiana.
Fun.
For Army basic training. So I went through Army basic training.
That's a great trip there.
Then I went through Army Artillery School in Fort Sill, and I love the artillery. I hate to say it, but there's nothing like, because shooting a big gun, so you got this big bullet, and it's like, the rounds, and it was what they call 105 towed, which is 105 millimeters, which is about that big around, and it's towed behind a truck, okay, because they do have self-propelled 105s. But this was a towed 105. So I trained on a 105 towed, and had these big rounds, and they were about, and they had of course, a brass cartridge case, and then had a brass cartridge case about 2.5 feet high. Yeah, and then a projectile on top of the round, the casing, and inside the casing were what they call increments. There's 7 bags of cordite powder in these bags. They're about that big.
Okay.
And then according to how far you're going to shoot is how many of those increments you would put into the case, the cartridge case.
You kind of had to
And so
know the geometry.
Everything. Yeah, they had a whole bunch of people that were in this what they call fire control center, FTC, and the fire control center would tell the guns in the battery, because it'd be like 5 guns in a battery. They would tell the guys in the battery how many increments to load in.
And they were doing the measurements.
Right. Okay. And so normally we would do like 3 or 4, because we could see that we were doing, the target was right there, maybe a mile away. Yeah. So you weren't using all increments. So we'd use like 3 or 4 increments in there. And just what you do is you grab down in there and you grab those bags and pull them up. And they're all tied together with a string. And then you would, if you were going to do like 4 increments, you would pull 3 out and put 3 on the outside. Then you take the round and shove it down into the cartridge, into the case, and it would cut that string.
Oh, wow.
And the other bags would fall on the ground, and then at the end of the day, we'd get to burn it.
Oh.
Get to burn the cordite. And that was just, I just love that stuff. It was a hoot. You know, we would, at the end of the day, we'd line all these cordite bags up on the ground, and then somebody takes a lighter and light the first one, and this, white hot flame would go down these. It wouldn't blow up. It just burned down these bags, and it had the smell of this cordite. It's the same when they shoot the gun. You use the same smell.
Yeah.
But the smell of the burning cordite, or the cordite from the artillery, the firing, which is just like, it was hypnotic almost. I just love that smell. Yeah. Yeah.
And if you love guns,
yeah, and then you could see when you fired the gun, you could see it go down range.
That's awesome.
Because you're firing a projectile that's like 2 feet long and 105 millimeters in diameter.
Okay.
You can see that thing going down there, all the way down to the target. And then in Fort Sill, we were 105s. Behind us, they were firing on the same range, but these were much bigger guns. There's a 155s, which are 155 millimeters, right behind us. And behind them were the 175s, which are even bigger. And then behind them were the 8-inch, the big boys. And you could see them going overhead. You hear them, boom, and they'd fire, and you can see the rounds going overhead, going down to the impact area. And Fort Sill, they actually fired over a road. There was a highway that went through Fort Sill, and the impact range was on one side, and the artillery guys were on the other. They were firing over the road.
Very safe. Good old back in the day kind of stuff.
Yeah, it was hilarious. But I just, I was eat up for that artillery. I'd go out at night. Seriously, I'd like about midnight, everybody was sleeping. I'd get up, and the gun park where all the cannons were sitting was right by our barracks. Just like, it was like across the street from our barracks. And I'd get up at midnight and I'd go out and take the gun apart.
Oh.
And because it was a test. They'd give you a test.
Yeah.
They'd take the gun apart and they'd lay the parts out on the ground. They'd say, okay, put it together.
How fast could you put a gun together?
I was pretty quick. But the thing that was really hard was the breech block. The breech block was a solid piece of steel about the size of, say, 4 loaves of bread. And it wasn't solid, but it was heavy steel, because that was what kept the explosive power going out the barrel.
Oh, okay.
Instead of coming back at you. And so I'd have to pick that breech block up and set it in. And I got where I could put it together pretty quick.
You like Forrest Gump fast?
No.
Ah.
Nobody's as fast for it. Yeah. Yeah, he was a champion. Yeah, but I would eat up with that. I loved it. I loved the Army Artillery. I should have just stayed in, but yeah, those guys in Vietnam, that was a pretty tough duty because they would go into an area there was a lot of enemy activity, and they would clear out what they call a fire base. Okay, and they could do it various ways. They could do it either with chainsaws,
okay,
and cordite or det cord, not cordite, det cord, which is it was a det cord is a cord. It looks like a piece of rope, but it's actually full of a chemical, and it burns at 20,000 feet per second.
Oh.
Okay. And what you do is you just take a piece of this cord, det cord, you tie it around a tree, and you put a knot in it.
Okay.
And if wherever you want the tree to fall, that's where you put the knot, or you put the knot, yeah, on this either the way you want to fall, no, opposite the way you want it to fall. So, and and you just had a little a firing mechanism. It was like a grenade in a way, and you just had a pin. You'd pull a pin, and then it would I think it was electric. It would electrically detonate the det cord, and it would burn at 20,000 feet per second. And when it got to that knot, it would explode. So and it would blow a big chunk out of the tree. And then I'm just thinking it would fall. Yeah, it would fall. I think it would fall away from the knot. I can't remember, or toward. Anyway, it would blow this big chunk out of the tree, and that was the way they would clear. That'd be one way, because they call them pathfinders, would go in, and those pathfinders would clear out the fire base, and they would do the chainsaws or the det cord or whatever it took. As a matter of fact, had one where there was a mountain outside of Da Nang, and they wanted to put a fire base on it. They had a lot of activity, and so they brought in a daisy cutter. And what a daisy cutter is, a 25,000-pound bomb, and they launch them out of the back of a C-130. They don't drop it from a bomber because
so they ground launch it.
No, they come. The C-130 flies in there, has that 25,000-pound bomb in there, and they slide out the back of the C-130, and it has like 3 parachutes that deploy, and it floats down, floats down, floats down, and when it gets exactly where they want it, then I think they remotely detonate it. I'm not. It may have a proximity fuse that detonated itself, but anyway, they would set this thing off, and it would blow the whole top of the mountain off, flatten the whole top of the mountain. And I was out one time with the Marines, and they said, "Now there's a C-130 coming down this valley. He's going to take top of that mountain off right there with that daisy cutter. So when I tell you, get behind the tree, and you get where your back is to the mountain." Okay. And so here comes C-130. And okay, there's the C-130. And the sergeant says, "Okay, man, get
behind the tree.
Get in position." And she's going off. And about a minute later, this thing went off, and you could see the shock wave, going out from the explosion. And well, I'm up behind the tree. I see LC-30, and I wasn't a Marine, so sergeant couldn't do anything to me. officially. Anyway, kicked
Right.
my ass. But anyway, this bomb went off, and I see the shockwave going out. And I said, okay, I'll get behind a tree. And all of a sudden, these rocks started falling all over the place. And I'm talking like bowling ball sized rocks come falling down out of the sky, raining down on there. And hit a couple of guys. A couple of guys got either they were looking out behind a tree or they weren't completely behind the tree, and a couple of guys got hurt pretty bad by this debris and this explosion. And when it was all over, all the rocks had fallen, the top of that hill was gone. And there was an area probably about the size of a football field where it had blown the whole top of the mountain off and let this, and that's where they put the artillery. The Marines brought in artillery and set it on. Then they'd bring them on helicopters, bring those 105s in, drop them down the top of that mountain. Then they bring the ammo in, rock that down top of the mountain, and they had their fire base. But that was, that's the kind of, you just stop and think about it. These artillery guys are out there, and there's, pieces of wood and, shattered trees and, just probably mud and that's where they got to work.
Yep.
I mean, that's where they had to set their guns up and start shooting. And and then they may only be there for a couple of days, and they say, and go somewhere else. So everything was temporary with artillery. Everything was temporary.
They blow the whole mountaintop off for a temporary. That's crazy. Wow.
Kill all the monkeys. Yeah, all the monkeys and all them jungle rats and snakes and everything all got killed. Yeah. That's just some of the stuff that, and I mean, any Vietnam veteran that was in the field and working in Vietnam, they saw all that weird stuff like that. And like I said, it's just some things it's just like I can, it's like I say, vignettes. I can see, I can remember this, but then I can't remember anything before or after it. I've just, my brain's just taking a picture.
Yeah.
And there's no pictures before and no pictures after. It's not a movie.
Right.
It's just a picture.
Well, and I think that's why doing this podcast is really important for me, because it'll help you to recall things. It'll help you remember things as we go along and we tell your stories. You can kind of piece things together and say, oh, I remember this from this time.
Yeah.
Don't remember the year, don't remember where I was, but I do know that it was in Vietnam and this is what happened.
Yep.
So that'll be the cool part about it. How many of us kids do you have? How many kids do you got?
Well, I've had 6 children from 2 marriages. My first 2 children are only, my daughter is still alive. She's 52 now. My son got into some fentanyl in February of 2022, and it did him in. And
brother died.
Yeah, he was always, for years he'd been into drugs and alcohol and living on the edge, and even for a while he was hopping on trains.
He was a train hopper.
Yeah, and that was
Jesus.
Yeah, he would ride. What he'd do is he sees gondolas with these containers on them, and if you look in the front and back of the containers is a space about 3 or 4 feet long and 8 feet wide, the width of the train. And he would get down in there with his dog and ride all over the country.
Right.
Train, get in a train yard somewhere, and he'd jump off this train, go jump on that train. That's dangerous stuff. You down those marshalling yards.
Yeah.
They call them marshalling yards. That's where they assemble the trains.
Yep, that's where we park the truck sometimes in a marshalling yard.
Yeah.
will go. That's probably just where they set up the containers that are going to be going on.
Yeah. Yeah.
So you had 2 kids from your first marriage,
And I got
from your second marriage.
in my second marriage, I've got 3 fantastic daughters.
Yeah. So 3 of us
and
girls.
a great son.
And a good son.
Yeah.
Got a couple of son-in-laws.
Yep. Got 2 son-in-laws now.
Yeah, and one maybe someday son-in-law.
Yeah.
Billy's dating James now.
Yeah.
And then see what else. So after you got out of Vietnam, you went to school, right?
Yep.
You got your bachelor's.
Yeah.
In 3 years, right?
Yeah. Yeah. I went to Missouri Southern for a semester, and it was just going to 4 years. It used to be a community college, and it just went, and they had really very few offerings as far as majors, and very little social life. It's a real small school, and
it's still a small school.
And I said, I just felt like I needed something more.
Okay.
And I needed to have more whatever. I just didn't feel like I was getting and I was real close. It was only like 50 miles from home. I could have easily, come home on the weekends or something.
One of your daughters actually graduated from that college.
That's right. Yeah, my middle daughter, Vicky, graduated from there, and I got her nursing degree. And yeah, that was awesome that she was able to achieve that anywhere, but Missouri Southern was cool because she was close to my folks, and yeah, it was. And then I graduated from what was then State College of Arkansas, and now it's University of Central Arkansas.
Yes, it is.
Yeah, and
over in
Conway, Arkansas, and I one reason why I went there, well, there's several reasons I went there, but one reason why I went there is because it was the nursing, and it was at one time it was called Arkansas State Teachers College. And
you wanted to be a teacher, correct?
And I wanted to be a teacher, and also it had the nursing school there, which means there was a lot of women. So I would have a little bit more social life than I did at Missouri Southern. So, yeah.
Okay, so then after that, you graduated from university, and then you pretty much went almost straight into the Coast Guard, correct?
No.
No? Okay.
No. Big, epic story. Okay. So I get up, like graduate from college in 73. I had a degree in health education, and everybody that had graduated before me couldn't get a job because everything was a depression. The Vietnam War was over in 73, and all the troops are coming home, and all the factories are closing down that made bullets and sea rations and everything for the war. And so no jobs, none, especially for health educators. So I said, well, because my oldest daughter, Tracy, was born just before I graduated.
Okay.
See, she was born
so you were a full-time student.
Right.
You were a new dad.
Right.
And were you working full-time, or were you just going to school?
I was working full-time. I was making buses.
Okay.
Yeah, Ward Bus Company.
The Bluebird buses, right?
Ward.
Okay.
Ward Bus Company.
School buses, right?
Yep.
Okay.
Yep.
All right.
Mainly school buses. And so anyway, so I said, well, I kind of don't have any options, so I'm thinking military, because I grew up in the military. So I said, well, I'm thinking maybe I should be in the service.
Yeah.
And so I went down to the Air Force recruiter.
Okay.
And I said, I want to join the Air Force. I have a college degree. What are my options? He said, well, you want to fly? And I said, oh yeah, you're in the Air Force. You better be flying.
Yeah.
Because I mean, that's the fly boys, the ones that get all their promotions and all the glory.
The celebrities, huh?
Right, exactly. They're the Tom Cruise of the Air Force, are the pilots. And so I said, okay, well I can't fly because I can't be a pilot because I wear glasses, but it could be a navigator, or what they call in the Air Force is called an EWO, electronic warfare officer. In the Navy, it's a naval flight officer. But anyway, you can fly second seat in a fighter. You can be on a B-52 or C-130 as a navigator, or the electronic warfare officer, which is
pretty cool.
so you'll be launching missiles and all that kind of neat stuff. So anyway, I took the flight physical, passed the flight physical, no problem. And I did have, there was a, if you, they do an electrocardiogram on the EKG.
Okay.
And I had what they call is an AV node in your heart. It's a nerve bundle that when it gets gets a message from your central nervous system, it fires and it makes a valve close. Okay. I had, now your valve is supposed to be, there's a time in tenth of a second between the time the node fires and the valve closes. My AV node was firing at 6/10 of a second, which is okay according to the Air Force, but the Navy didn't qualify. You're supposed to be 5/10 of a second.
Okay.
So the Air Force, so the Air Force flight officer was accepting, but the naval flight officer would not qualify me. He said, "You're not qualified to be a."
So you had to qualify for
so in the meantime, we had moved to Corpus Christi because Lackland Air Base is San Antonio. So I took my family down there, my wife and my little daughter down there, and so I could be in Lackland and still be just 2 hours from my family. And so I get down to Lackland, or I get down to Corpus Christi, and the Air Force and the Navy are going back and forth on this.
Okay.
And so the Navy said,
wanted you.
The Air Force wanted me. The Navy said you weren't qualified. So and I'm right there next to the Naval Air Station in Corpus Christi. It's like we're right almost at the main gate going into the air station. And so I go over there and I take 2 or 3 EKGs. And so finally, the flight, I'm in there and I'm taking the EKG and everything. And so I called Lackland, or no, I called Brooks Army Hospital, Brooks Air Force or Army Hospital. That's where the Air Force had their cardiologist, was in this because the Air Force really doesn't have a whole lot of hospitals. The Army and the Navy got lots of hospitals. So this flight surgeon was, I think, in Brooks Army Hospital. And I called him up and I said that the Navy's not going to pass me my flight physical. And he said, let me talk to that flight surgeon. So I handed the phone to him, and and finally the Navy flight surgeon handed me the phone back. I said, yes, sir. And he said, come to Brooks Army Hospital. We'll give you an Air Force EKG, and you'll be in. Okay. So I hung up the phone. I went home, and all I had to do, get in the Air Force, was get in a car and drive 2 hours to Lackland or Brooks Army Hospital, take an EKG. I was in. For some reason, I said, no, I don't want to do that. I do not want to go in the Air Force. I don't want to be a flight surgeon or a navigator, EWO. And everybody just going, here are the Air Force recruiters and my family and And my in-laws, I was living with my in-laws, and they're going, "What? Why don't you want to go into the Air Force?" I said, "I don't know. I just don't. I don't want to go in. I don't feel right about it." Okay. And so everything went dead stop. Everybody threw my papers in a trash can, I guess, and then I went and joined the Coast Guard.
And it felt right.
Yeah, but here's the story, the final story. About a year after I went in the Coast Guard, I went in the Coast Guard right away after I decided not to go in the Air Force. I was sitting on a board ship reading a newspaper, and I seen this one article that said Air Force jet crash or something like that for the headline. I go, oh. So I started reading the story, and what it was a Air Force cargo plane with navigational trainees was flying. They do a final test. They train them in California at Mather Air Force Base, which is now closed. It was in Sacramento. They'd fly them from Mather. They would do 1,000-mile out, 1,000-mile back, and that was their final test. This plane was loaded with navigation suits and doing 1,000 miles. They were over Peterson Air Force Base in Colorado Springs, and they collided with another plane and crashed and killed everybody.
Whoa. Would you have been on that plane?
I would have been on that freaking plane.
Ooh.
Because you have to go through to become a navigator. You have to go through officer training school, officer cadet school, which is about 3 months long. So 3 months, and then
so you can kind of start doing the math in your head, like
exactly. Exactly.
Wow.
So that's.
And you've had quite a few near misses in your life, haven't you? Quite a few.
Oh yeah.
Close calls.
Oh yeah.
Just from a split decision.
Yeah.
And I definitely think that we'll share a lot of those stories while we're going along.
Okay.
But I think we should probably wrap it up. We're about an hour.
Okay.
But one unique thing that I do want to mention, what we'll be doing is we'll be doing the podcast with a split screen, because I'm going to be out on the semi truck on tour. Right now we're touring with The Weekend, and Dad over here is going to be in Lava Hot Springs, Idaho.
Yep.
Hanging out at home, helping Mom with the farm. So we're going to be in two separate places. But one of the things that I really wanted to do also with this podcast is have some really good bonding time. We can bring in a lot of guest appearances. Dad's got a cousin that actually was a Black Hawk helicopter pilot.
And I have another cousin that was a mechanic on Huey's in Vietnam.
There we go.
J-Bob.
J-Bob.
Yep.
So we'll see about getting a couple guest appearances, maybe taking a couple of neat little trips to different locations that Dad remembers. So it'll be a lot of fun. We're gonna have a lot of fun on this podcast, and hopefully we can keep it going. But the main reason why we wanted to do it is not for views. It's not for popularity, anything like that. It's so that Dad here can share his stories and get it out, because he's always wanted to write a book, and just we both actually, ironically, and I think almost funny enough, we both have ADHD. We've both been diagnosed with ADHD. So I think writing and trying to focus and concentrate was something that I was a little concerned about Dad having to do here. So I suggested doing a podcast to really help out with remembering things and getting your story out. So podcast is going to be raw, and sometimes we'll have to probably stop the camera just because things will come up and be a little bit rough for Dad here to handle. But we'll get through it, and I hope that all of you keep joining us week to week as we talk about things and work through things and share things. We've got a pretty unique family, I think, with just two normal people in this world and a couple of other normal people in our family that just are living kind of some interesting lives.
Yeah, I'd like to point out that only 5% of over the road truck drivers OTC drivers, OTR drivers are women.
That's right.
So
Very unique.
She is unique just in that respect.
I've been doing it for 12 years.
And plus, she's beautiful, and she just got married in December.
We are newlyweds. Newlyweds. We're loving the newlywed life. We're both truckers. My husband's actually the lead truck driver on the tour, and he's actually pretty well known in the industry.
Oh yeah.
Believe it or not, a lot of people know who Danny Schneider
been doing it 20 years.
That's 17, 18 this year.
Yep.
So it's a long time to be doing that specific industry. So, and some of my other siblings just are, they have some interesting career paths and they have lived some really interesting lives. Probably bring them up into this podcast as well. But we hope that you all enjoyed it, and hopefully you'll tune in next week with us as we're going to be figuring out how to do this. I've never done this before, so the technology part of everything and trying to figure out the cameras and the laptop, it's been a little bit of a challenge, but we'll get through it.
Yeah.
So it's a learning experience.
And my appearance is going to change.
Oh.
Because the 17th of July, I'm getting my teeth. Oh. Yeah.
He's got a fabulous collection of Hawaiian shirts. We find the latest one was an orange cone palm tree Hawaiian shirt from Huntsville, Alabama gun show with pistols on it. I thought that was the best one. We also got him a Coast Guard Hawaiian shirt. Anyway, you guys will see the Hawaiian shirts. You will love them. He's got a huge collection. So he's not wearing one today. He's representing Idaho farmers today.
Yeah.
So
got my buttons.
Got his pearl button up that he's very proud of. So but we'll definitely have a lot of fun with this podcast, and we're really excited for it. So you guys have a fantastic week. Please stay safe out there. Watch out for crazy traffic, as I do every single day when I'm out there on the road. And we hope that you all will enjoy it as we go along. Please make suggestions. And if you have any ideas about some stories that you maybe want Dad to share, we will definitely take suggestions. So, but you guys have a wonderful week, and we will talk to you later.